Hello everyone, it's Scott, and welcome to today's Bloomburrow spoilers. We got some previews at MagicCon Amsterdam for the set, and we'll be getting our first additional previews this week, and then next week full spoiler season will begin. So let's dive in to these Bloomburrow spoilers. So we got one rare from the set, and that's Salvation Swan for 3 and a white mana. You get a bird cleric, that's a 3/3 with flash and flying. And whenever Salvation Swan or another bird you control enters the battlefield, exile up to one target creature you control without flying, and return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. So I could see this working in one of two ways. One is it's a card that would be used to save a creature in combat, and the other way would be that we've got birds in our deck with the idea we're going to be able to attack with our stuff and then flash this in later and go ahead and give those creatures a flying counter that don't have flying already. Now, is this going to be something we see a lot of play in standard? Probably not, but in limited, it'll be a solid card for your deck. Next, we got our villages for the set. So one of the new things from Bloomburrow is a set of village lands, and each of the village lands taps for colorless mana, and then also taps for a mana of its color that can be spent only on creatures, and then it has a special ability. So let's go through them to understand what those special abilities are. So Lupin Flower Village, again, taps white mana for white creature spells, and then for 1 and a white mana you can sacrifice Lupin Flower Village and look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a bat, bird, mouse, or rabbit card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So a nice little ability late in the game when you want to dig for a creature card, so you can do that. So it's definitely in limited, very playable, and I think in standard, if we get a deck that's built around any of those creature types, then this might be a solid card for that deck as well. Next, we have Lily Pad Village. Again, it's going to tap for blue mana. Then for 1 blue mana, you can tap it and surveil 2, but you can only activate it if a bird, frog, otter, or rat enter the battlefield under your control this turn. So I think this is going to have a little bit of a limited value in standard because it has to be one of those 4 creature types to allow you to activate that ability. So I think unless there's a dedicated deck in one of those areas, it's going to be a little bit harder to activate that ability. Next, we've got Mudflat Village. Okay, this is our black land, and you can pay 1 and a black and sacrifice Mudflat Village and return target bat, lizard, rat, or squirrel card from your graveyard to your hand. So nice late in the game ability to bring back one of those 4 creature types, and the fact that it's on a land, if you've got a deck that has those kinds of cards in it, then I can see this probably having some playability in standard. Next, we've got Rockface Village. For 1 red mana, you can tap it, and you can give target lizard, mouse, otter, or raccoon you control +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn, and you can only activate this as a sorcery. So again, this is where in limited, very good card if you're building around those creatures. In standard, it's going to be more difficult because right now there aren't any otters, mice, lizards, or raccoons that we're seeing played in red, but if those cards are powerful enough and we see them in standard, then this is a card that I think we'll definitely see some standard play. Next, we've got Oak Hollow Village, which is our green land, and you can pay 1 green mana and put a +1/+1 counter on each frog, rabbit, raccoon, or squirrel you control that entered the battlefield this turn. So this may be the most usable one of them, assuming you're building around those creature types. Definitely in limited, this will be probably one of the better of the lands because you're likely to be able to do those things in a limited format. All right, so let's look at the new cards from today. First is Sunshower Druid for a green mana. You get a Frog Druid, that's a 0/2. And whenever Sunshower Druid enters play, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and you gain 1 life. So limited playable, nothing beyond that. So for 1 mana, you can get a 1/3, which is nice in standard, but unless there's a dedicated deck that wants frogs in it, I don't see this seeing much standard play. Next, we've got Carrot Cake for 1 and a white mana. You get an artifact that's a food, and when Carrot Cake enters the battlefield and when you sacrifice it, create a 1/1 white rabbit creature token and scry 1. And for 2 mana, you can sacrifice Carrot Cake and you gain 3 life. So the way I'm looking at this card is in limited, it's probably a pretty decent card because you're going to be able to create that white rabbit creature. You get that scry ability, which is nice and limited. And then later in the game, you can sacrifice it, gain some life, and also get another body on the field and get that additional scry. So in limited, I think this is playable. Probably not, though, in standard. Next, we've got Pearl of Wisdom for 2 and a blue mana. You get a sorcery, and this spell costs 1 less to cast if you control an otter. You get to draw 2 cards. So if there's a deck that is going to have otters in it, then I think this is a good card for that deck. Getting to draw 2 cards for 2 mana is a pretty solid ability in standard. Definitely in limit is a card you're going to want to use. Next, we've got Early Winter for 4 and a black mana. You get an instant, and you get to choose one of these abilities. You can exile target creature, or target opponent exiles an enchantment they control. So, limited playable, removal, won't see play beyond that. Next, we've got Might of the Meek for 1 red mana. You get an instant, and target creature gains trample until end of turn. It also gets +1/+0 until end of turn if you control a mouse, and you get to draw a card. So for 1 mana, you get to give a creature trample, and you get to draw a card. So definitely a card that I think will see limited play, and I think has some standard playability in our Slick Shot show-off decks that we're seeing in standard, because the ability to give something trample at instant speed and then get that additional card draw is definitely worth it in standard. And that's our previews from Bloomburrow. So we got a little bit more information about the set over the weekend, and we'll be getting additional information on M2G Weekly this week. And then next week, we'll see official spoiler season kickoff, and we'll be getting most of the cards over the next 2 weeks. So thanks for staying to the end of the video, and you can take a look at my first look at Bloomburrow from earlier this year if you click on the link on the screen. Thanks. I'll see you next time.